Alright y'all, welcome back to another video. This week we got Yadong versus Deiveson Figueiredo at UFC Macau. Unfortunately for us US fans, it's gonna take place at 4 in the fucking morning. But if you're retarded like me, staying up till 4 in the morning shouldn't be an issue for a UFC card. Alright, but regardless though, I'm going to be giving my predictions for every single fight on this card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. Alright, so we're kicking things off with Loma Lookboonmee versus Jacqueline Amorim. Now, I really don't want to pick Jacqueline Amorim after her last fight with Mizuki Inoue, but I'm still going to pick her to beat Loma Lookboonmee, because I feel like Loma Lookboonmee is one of the most overrated fighters on the roster. Alright, everybody glazes her because she's from Thailand and she's got some really beautiful striking. Like, technique-wise, that's true, but she's barely damaging any of her opponents. And keep in mind, she took 6-6 Estela Nunes to a competitive decision. So I don't think that's a good look for her at all. And whenever she's not able to outstrike her opponents, she's consistently getting taken down. And yes, I understand that Amorim's striking ain't the best, but her grappling is pretty solid. You know, she has a couple of submission wins in the UFC where she's able to ragdoll girls at will. And I think that's what's going to happen to Loma Lookboonmee. So give me Jacqueline Amorim. I'm going to say by decision. You know, I don't think Amorim's exactly the best, but I at least seen her being able to take down a couple of women in the UFC, but I can't say the same for Loma Lookboonmee, who hasn't really proven any sort of grappling, and someone who doesn't really look all that good on the feet either, other than like, oh, she threw a nice body kick up the middle, but like realistically though, she's not really dealing any damage. All right, moving on, we got Kangjie versus Rodrigo Vera. I'm going to go with Rodrigo Vera. You know, for those of you guys who don't know who this guy is, he was supposed to make his appearance on The Ultimate Fighter, but he decided to just say fuck all that. And now he's going to be fighting Kangjie on short notice. And I'm still going to pick him to win because Rodrigo Vera is incredibly nasty with it, both on the feet, but especially on the ground, though. Like, a lot of his wins come from submissions. And I don't think that Kangjie has really prepared himself against someone who has a submission tool bag like Rodrigo Vera. And I also think that Kangjie, he's been fighting a lot of guys who just like to scrap it out with him on the feet and strike. But it's an MMA fight at the end of the day. So I'm going to pick Rodrigo Vera to win the MMA fight. And I'm going to say that he wins this fight primarily using his grappling because Kangjie's grappling is rather untested, to say the least. So yeah, give me Rodrigo Vera to win. I'm going to say by first or second round submission. I think that's how he's going to get the job done. But either way, though, keep an eye out for Rodrigo Vera because I think he's going to do a lot of great things in the UFC once he gets a win over Kangjie. All right, now moving on, we got Angela Hill versus Jingnan Xiong. I'm going to go with Jingnan Xiong. Now, before I give my prediction for this, for some reason, the UFC decided to bring Jingnan Xiong onto the UFC roster when she's past her prime at the age of 38 years old. But I'm glad that Jingnan Xiong is making her UFC debut because she's actually pretty nasty with it on the feet. I've been watching a couple of fights in the One Championship, and she looks pretty good, to say the least. All right, now, do I think of her as a title contender necessarily? Not really. I do think that her grappling is kind of a concern, and again, she's 38 years old, so it's kind of, I wouldn't say there's a lot of hope for her, to say the least. But I do think she's good enough to beat Angela Hill because Angela Hill, she's mostly known for just neutralizing your offense on the feet. She doesn't really throw that much with output or like with damage. A lot of what Angela Hill does is just clinch you against the cage, make you work, tire you out. But again, there's no damage and there's no output for Jingnan Xiong to really worry about. And I think that Jingnan Xiong is good enough to punish someone like that because she's very nasty with it on the feet and she's got the more dynamic strikes. So give me Jingnan Xiong to win. I'm going to say by decision. I will say, though, she's going to beat the crap out of Angela Hill, but I don't think she's going to put away Hill because Hill is pretty tough. But either way, though, the striking is going to be way different between Angela Hill and Jingnan Xiong. And I think that Jingnan Xiong is going to comfortably win this fight 30-27, where she's just teeing off on Angela Hill for 3 rounds of this fight. Moving on, we got Ray Tsaruya versus Luis Gurule. I'm going to go with Ray Tsaruya for a couple of reasons here. First being that Luis Gurule is fighting on short notice. The original opponent was supposed to be Jesus Aguilar, and unfortunately, Jesus Aguilar had to pull out. And Luis Gurule, he fought 2 weeks ago at the Apex, and now he's going to have to adjust to the jet lag and fight against someone who he didn't have any sort of training camp for. I don't like those factors for Luis Gurule. But second off, though, even if Luis Gurule got a full training camp, I don't see him being able to stop the grappling of Ray Tsaruya. I understand that Joshua Van was able to do it, but Joshua Van is really, really good. I don't consider Luis Gurule and Joshua Van to be on the same level whatsoever. And I think that once Ray Tsaruya is able to take you down, he's going to be able to twist you up like a pretzel and just have his way with you on the ground. So give me Ray Tsaruya. I'm gonna say by late round submission. Yeah, I don't see Gurule really being able to defend all of the takedowns. I understand that he was able to do that against Daniel Perez, but Daniel Perez is not nearly of a dynamic wrestler like Ray Tsaruya is. So give me Ray Tsaruya to win. I'm going to say by second or third round submission. I could see Gurule being able to defend the first couple of takedowns because he does have solid takedown defense. But after the first few, and once Ray Tsaruya starts going for some judo trips, I think that's where Gurule's going to start to open up, and eventually he's going to find himself in a submission. So give me Ray Tsaruya by round 2 submission. Alright, now moving on, we got Aoriqileng versus Cody Haddon. I'm going to go with Cody Haddon on this one, and it's simply because it's Aoriqileng. Alright, the guy is a complete NPC jobber. He's best known for his takedown defense, and I'm sorry, if the one stat that everybody can talk about you is your takedown defense only, you're kind of an NPC at that point, alright? And I don't see Aoriqileng really being able to punish Cody Haddon with strikes, and yes, I understand that Cody Haddon hasn't been active, to say the least, but he was looking promising before he took a 2-year layoff due to random injuries here and there. And I think that he's good enough to beat someone like Aoriqileng, who doesn't really have any sort of specialties outside of his takedown defense. So give me Cody Haddon to comfortably outstrike Aoriqileng in the boxing. I think that's where Cody Haddon's going to do his best work here. Aoriqileng is very vulnerable to straight punches down the pipe. So give me Cody Haddon to win by 30-27. I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes Aoriqileng because fucking Ayman Zahabi was able to finish Aoriqileng. Do I think it's necessarily going to happen, though? Hard to say. Again, it's been a while since Cody Haddon has fought, and he's not exactly known to be an exciting finisher by any means. But I do think he's comfortably better than Aoriqileng on the feet. So, yeah, for that reason, I'm going to say that Cody Haddon's going to comfortably piece up Aoriqileng by 30-27 decision. Moving on, we got Meng Ding versus Jose Henrique. I'm going to go with Meng Ding on this one, alright, for a couple of reasons. First off, I think Meng Ding is the far more experienced and more poised fighter. Jose Henrique, he's not really fought that many fights. He's 8-1. It's a solid record, but he's fighting guys who are 2-2 or 3-2 in their professional MMA careers. Meng Ding, on the other hand, he's been beating up a lot of regional scene prospects, all right? And I do think that he's poised and he has gained a lot of experience from beating up all of these regional level prospects. And I also do think that Meng Ding, he has a lot more damaging shots. Now, there is a concern because I've been watching Meng Ding's tapes, and he does leave his chin up in the air, but I don't see Jose Henrique being able to capitalize on that because he's very passive. All right, a lot of the times you watch Jose Henrique, he primarily just keeps his distance out of range, and he primarily uses his reach in order to win fights. But because both of these guys are very similar in reach and height, I don't see that really playing a factor for Jose Henrique. So give me Meng Ding to win this fight. I'm going to say by round 1 or 2 TKO. I think he's a lot more scrappy. I think he hits with the harder shots. And I do think that he's more dynamic on the feet as well. All right. A lot of Jose Henrique's strikes primarily rely on him being bigger than his opponent. But when they're similar height, I do think that Meng Ding, skill for skill, is a lot better. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Meng Ding to get the job done. All right, moving on, we got Luis Felipe Diaz versus Ishak Lee. Man, this is kind of tough, but I'm going to have to go with Luis Felipe Diaz on this one. I'm sorry, my Korean brethren. I really want to pick him, and I am rooting for him to win. But I do think that Luis Felipe Diaz is a lot better of an MMA fighter. Because Ishak Lee, if you look through his topology, a lot of his fights are against complete tomato cans. Now, not to say that Luis Felipe Diaz's record is all that much better, but I do think he's more tested, and especially off his Dana White Contender Series fight, where he fought like a 6-0 undefeated prospect and eventually put him away after having a crazy back-and-forth brawl. I do think he's more ready for the UFC, all right? Now, again, I hope that Ishak Lee wins, right? But it's kind of a tough ask when not that long ago you're losing to guys who are like 12-9 in their professional career. I don't think that's a great look, and considering that both of these guys are primary grapplers, I think a lot of the weapons that Ishak Lee has been able to use, a lot of the rear naked chokes and just top control submissions, I don't think that's going to necessarily work. All right, so give me Luis Felipe Diaz to get the job done. I'm going to say by round 2 TKO. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen, all right? Maybe Ishak Lee does very well in the first round, but eventually I could see Luis Felipe Diaz coming back and just putting away Ishak Lee because, again, Ishak Lee, he's not really had that much experience past the first round, let alone against anybody who's actually really solid in their MMA career. Moving on, we got Alex Perez versus Sumudaerji. I'm going to go with Alex Perez on this one. I thought about picking Sumudaerji, but it kind of brings me back to the Matt Schnell performance. Like, yes, Sumudaerji is way better than when he fought Matt Schnell. All right, he's on like a 3-fight win streak against Jesus Aguilar, against Kevin Boras. I forgot the other guy he fought. Oh, Mitch Raposo. Yeah, Mitch Raposo as well. But it's like, why are you getting TKO'd by Matt Schnell? And more importantly, you had Matt Schnell hurt at multiple points in the fight. Why are you incapable of putting away Matt Schnell? Right? I feel like those two reasons alone should really deter you from picking Sumudaerji in this matchup. Now, I will say Sumudaerji has improved in his grappling, like what we saw in his last fight with Jesus Aguilar. But Alex Perez is not really known for his insane grappling. If anything, Perez is known for just beating your ass on the feet. And I think that Perez in this matchup doesn't really have to fear the grappling aspect of this fight because a lot of Perez's losses have come from submission. I don't think Sumudaerji is all of a sudden going to come out here and look to submit Alex Perez in this fight. I see Sumudaerji just trying to pick his shots at range. But the problem is there's no power behind Sumudaerji's shots. And Alex Perez, if he doesn't respect you in the striking, he will just box you up. Right? So I'm going to say that Alex Perez gets the job done. I wouldn't be shocked if he TKOs Sumudaerji because, again, Sumudaerji got TKO'd by Matt Schnell back in the day. I don't think it's going to happen, though. He has looked a little bit more durable recently. But I still think that Sumudaerji, like, he has no pop in his shots, and he's going to get bullied on the feet by any sort of high-pressure striker. And I think that Alex Perez is the high-pressure striker to do so, so give me Alex Perez to win this fight, at least by 30-27 decision. Moving on, we got Jake Matthews versus Carlston Harris. Now, Jake Matthews has time and time again disappointed me, especially after his fight with Neil Magny. That was incredibly sad to watch. But I'm still going to pick him to beat Carlston Harris because it's fucking Carlston Harris in the year 2026. The guy is incapable of striking, let alone defending himself on the feet. And in the grappling, yes, Carlston Harris has an advantage, but can he get Jake Matthews to the ground without getting chinned in the first round? That's a very tough ask for Carlston Harris at this point in his career. So I see Jake Matthews just piecing up Carlston Harris on the feet, and Jake Matthews' grappling has improved. Like, unless Harris gets to the third round and somehow Jake Matthews puts himself into a submission, okay, maybe then I could say that Carlston Harris wins, but I don't see that happening because I don't see this fight going past the second round, right? Most likely what's going to happen is Harris is going to be wobbling all over the place because Jake Matthews is just piecing him up, and Harris might go for a shitty double leg, and next thing you know, Jake Matthews stuffs the takedown and just puts away Carlston Harris on the ground by ground and pound TKO. So give me Jake Matthews to win. I'm going to say by first or second round, ground and pound TKO after he wobbles Carlston Harris at multiple points in this fight. All right, now moving on, we got Kai Asakura versus Cameron Smotherman. I'm going to go with Kai Asakura on this one. Now, I understand that losing to Tim Elliott is an incredibly bad look in the year 2025. That being said, though, I don't think Asakura has to worry about the grappling aspect of this MMA fight. So I'm going to pick Kai Asakura to comfortably piece up Cameron Smotherman, because Cameron Smotherman has not really looking exceptional, to say the least. Like, yes, he beat Jake Hadley, but Jake Hadley was a 5'4" midget who should be fighting at flyweight, but he decided to move up to bantamweight for some reason, right? And outside of that, though, Kai Asakura, he's actually really solid, all right? Like, I've watched his Ryzen highlights prior to his making his debut in the UFC, and let me just say, Asakura is incredibly good when it comes to striking fight, all right? And I think that Cameron Smotherman, he's going to be dealt with a heavy speed disadvantage, which is not really good if you're in a primary striking battle. So give me Kai Asakura to win. I think that he's going to land the more damaging shots. I won't be shocked if he can TKO Cameron Smotherman, because Cameron Smotherman has been TKO'd a couple of times in the past. But either way, though, this is a pretty comfortable win for Kai Asakura, in my opinion, because there's no grappling aspect of the fight to be worrying about, and it's not like Cameron Smotherman is that good of a striker at all. So give me Kai Asakura to win by 30-27 decision, or possibly a TKO in the later parts of the fight. Moving on, we got Sergei Pavlovich versus Tallison Texeira. I'm going to go with Sergei Pavlovich, all right? Now, Tallison Texeira, at one point he was looked at as a great prospect, 6 feet 7 inches tall, not completely morbidly obese, someone who has power in his hands. But in hindsight, though, he's not all that good, all right? First off, why are you taking Tai Tuivasa in the year 2026 to a decision, all right? Louis Sutherland took Tai Tuivasa to a decision, and he did it in more impressive fashion, at least, all right? Which is not a great look. And second off, losing to Derek Lewis is also a bad look, especially after how Derek Lewis looked against Waldo Cortez Acosta. I think that Tallison Texeira, he's just not ready for the top 10 of this division. And for some reason, the UFC is deciding to put him against, Sergei Pavlovich, who is arguably the dark horse. I understand that he lost to Volkov and he lost to Tom Aspinall, but realistically, though, those are two of the best guys in the heavyweight division. And outside of that, Pavlovich has been looking really impressive. His win over Waldo Cortez Acosta has aged incredibly well. So I'm going to say that Sergei Pavlovich just boxes up Tallison Texeira. I wouldn't even be shocked if Pavlovich could knock out Texeira in the first round because fucking Derek Lewis was able to do so as well. But either way, though, I think that Texeira, he's just a step behind the top levels of the heavyweight division, which is why I'm going to have to go with Pavlovich to win this fight by round 1 TKO. All right, now moving on, we got Mingyang Zhang versus Alonzo Menifield. I'm going to go with Mingyang Zhang on this one because Mingyang Zhang is a prospect that the UFC actually want to build up. And I understand that he lost to fucking Johnny Walker, and Johnny Walker is not exactly the best. But I do think of Johnny Walker as a much better fighter than Alonzo Menifield. Alonzo Menifield is just a tard who primarily uses his athleticism in order to win fights, primarily via knockout. But if he doesn't have that, like, I think that he's a very easy opponent to beat. Volkan Oezdemir instantly put him away in the first round. Carlos Ulberg put him away in like 10 seconds. And yes, I understand that those guys are actually very elite. But who's to say that Johnny... Alright, now moving on, we got Mingyang Zhang versus Alonzo Menifield. I'm going to go with Mingyang Zhang on this one. Now, I understand that he lost to Johnny Walker, and Johnny Walker is awful, so it's not exactly a great look to lose to Johnny Walker. But at the same time, though, Mingyang Zhang, he is incredibly nasty with it on the feet, especially in the boxing. And I think that Alonzo Menifield has a very big weakness in the boxing because he's a guy who primarily utilizes his strength in order to overwhelm opponents and just get them out of comfort. But I don't think that Zhang Mingyang is the type of person to be overwhelmed just because you're kind of retard maxing and going forward in an aggressive manner. Right? If anything, that's how Zhang Mingyang gets a lot of his TKOs. All right, you trade in the pocket with him, and next thing you know, he gets a check left hook in, and boom, you go down. Right? That's typically how Zhang Mingyang gets a lot of his wins, and I could see that happening in this fight because Alonzo Menifield has a history of running into hooks in the first round of a fight. Alright, so I'm going to say that Zhang Mingyang, it's not like a fight he has to worry about the calf kicks. Alright, Alonzo Menifield throws barely any calf kicks, if at all. And in the boxing, he's just a lot better, technically, on a level. So I'm going to say that Zhang Mingyang gets his get back and gets a first round TKO. And then we can start talking about, alright, maybe Zhang Mingyang can go on another run. Alright, even though I don't think he's the best, but I think he's good enough to beat someone like Alonzo Menifield, who hasn't really been looking the best, to say the least. Now, moving on to the main event, we got Song Yadong versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I'm going to go with Song Yadong on this one. Yeah, and I have multiple reasons. First being that Figueiredo is 38 years old, and I don't want to pick 38-year-old Figueiredo to beat any sort of elite level bantamweight on the UFC roster. I don't think that's a controversial statement. But it's also the fact that Figueiredo, he has just not been looking the same recently. Right? Ever since he lost to Petr Yan back in 2024, it seems like Figueiredo is a lot more gun-shy than before. Like, I understand that there's no shame in losing to Petr Yan, but it just feels like he aged rapidly over the course of 2 years, right? It just doesn't feel like Figueiredo really has the power or the speed that he used to have against a lot of these bantamweights. And in the grappling, yes, he does have an advantage, but I don't think it's a significant advantage where he can definitively keep down Song Yadong for multiple points in this fight, let alone submit him. And over the course of 5 rounds, like, Figueiredo is going to slow down, all right? Because even in his prime, he was known as a very explosive guy who wears and tears as the fight goes on. So for that reason, I'm going to say that Song Yadong, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a TKO later in this fight, all right? I think that Figgy's durability is kind of cooked. His gas tank was already cooked to begin with. And in the striking, it's like Figueiredo, he doesn't throw with that much output. He can throw with power here and there, but Figgy has to really trust in himself to not get clipped and just being able to land the shots first. But I don't see that version of Figueiredo anymore, all right, who used to walk people down and try to bully them on the feet. Like, I don't see that anymore. So I'm going to say that Song Yadong's going to TKO Deiveson Figueiredo. I'm going to say in the 3rd or 4th round, all right? Like, maybe the first 2 rounds, like, Song Yadong just starts making his reads, try to get Figueiredo to commit. But in the 3rd and 4th round, once Song Yadong starts to warm up, I think that's where Song Yadong will be able to find the TKO shot against Deiveson Figueiredo and put him away in a very sad manner. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. Leave your comments down below what you guys think about this event, as well as your predictions for UFC Macau. But otherwise, though, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.